This is the No Stroke Podcast with your co-hosts David Dansereau and Michael Garrow, helping you to support and thrive in life after stroke. Their podcast is designed for educational and community support purposes only and should not replace medical treatment and guidance of your own health professional team.
The microtransponder Vivistim paired VNS system is intended to be used to stimulate the vagus nerve during rehabilitation therapy in order to reduce upper extremity motor deficits and improve motor function in chronic ischemic stroke patients with moderate to severe arm impairment. Do not use if you have had a bilateral or left cervical vagotomy. Risks may include, but are not limited to, pain after surgery, hoarseness, bruising, swelling, coughing, and throat irritation. While not observed in the Vivistim studies, infection leading to explant is a risk associated with any device surgery. For full safety information, please see www.vivistim.com/safety. Individual results may vary. Hi, Tim, and welcome to the No Stroke Podcast.
Good morning. Glad to be here.
Yeah, thank you. Looking forward to, you being able to share your story. We were chatting a little bit before here. We're some Northeast guys, some common connections. I'm sure Patriots fan. I don't know if you're a big hockey guy like David, but it's a great time of year for sport. And I know you are a soccer coach. So maybe for our listeners, let's kind of, before we jump in to the nitty gritty with your stroke and the recovery, let's give the listeners a little background of who Tim is and kind of where you are today.
Yeah, soccer has always been a part of my a big part of my life. I grew up playing soccer, and then post college got into the coaching world, and I played at a Division III level at Little Mitchell College in New London, Connecticut, and then now I coach full time. I like to say that I'm a better coach than I am player. I don't claim to be, the best player, but I work with I work with kids, and predominantly on the girls side, younger kids, anywhere between like ages 8 to 14, and it's a lot of fun. Let's put it this way: it beats a full-time. It beats a 9 to 5, office job. It's nice to have a career that it doesn't feel like a job.
Well, Tim, thank you so much for joining us this morning. And, as we started talking a little bit before we recorded here, we're all, as Mike said, in the New England area, and you and I are actually very close to each other right up the road. You're in the Foxborough area of Massachusetts. Can you take us back to, your experience with stroke? Like, for our listeners, how long ago was your stroke? What type of stroke did you have? And just kind of share, your experience so far.
Yeah. So I had 20 February. Let me just back up a little bit. So the way kind of the events led up is, number one, December 4th, 2019, I moved into a new house with my wife and child. And then over Christmas break, I get sick. I had the flu. And then we had my second child on December 28th, 2019. Then February 2nd, 2020 was the Super Bowl, where you just eat like crap and you just kind of, veg out for the entire day. So that all leads up to February 4th, 2020, where I'm doing a workout class at my work in Acton, Massachusetts. And I'm doing a workout class, and we're running up and down the field kind of as a warm up. And one thing leads to another, and I feel kind of out of breath. And to be honest with you, I thought it was just, I didn't work out on the Monday. I thought it was just me overcoming the poor decisions of Sunday Super Bowl day. But one thing led to another, and the people around me are also soccer coaches and in the athletic field, and they quickly realized that it was something more. And I started to have the signs of a stroke, where my left side started to droop, and I started to lose mobility on my left side. Um, they called 911. I were fortunate enough where we lived. We worked down the street from a hospital, um, Emerson Hospital in Concord, and so ambulance came right away. I go to the hospital to Concord. I was there for a few hours, and then they make the decision to send me over to MGH Boston, where I went to MGH Boston for a week, where they ran tests after tests after tests to figure out what happened, and it was an ischemic stroke to the right ganglia, on the right side here, and after test after test after test, they couldn't come up with anything. And so they don't know how it happened. But anyways, after that week of tests and getting everything sorted out, I was sent to Spalding Rehab in Charlestown, where I resided there from March. I'm sorry, from February 10th, 2020 to March 6th, 2020. And that is where I received just an excessive amount of therapy and treatment, and it was obviously what I needed at the time, and I'm very, very thankful for. I'm very, very thankful for being at Spalding and their staff, and being with MGH, because they are the most professional and the best staff that anyone could ask for. Let's put it that way. And they got me through a tough time. Being at Spalding, it made it. It was a very unique case, I guess, because number one, my age. I was 35. I was 35 years old at the time, uh, and it was, yeah. And again, they didn't know how it happened, so it was a very unique case. With my age, though, they kept on saying, "Hey, you're going to be all right because of your age, because you're an athlete," and they're right. And they gave me the positive. They gave me the positive, the reassurance that I can go through this, and that everything will be all right. Um, the other thing that made it quite unique, I feel like, was the amount of social support I received. Um, I was remarkably thankful, and to the amount of people who visited me, the amount of people who reached out, and people who really cared, um, about my well-being, and keep it and being kept updated. It really meant a lot. Let's put it that way. And it meant it made me um, go through the journey that much easier.
Yeah. that power of team. We speak to that a lot, right? And obviously, yourself as, an athlete, now coach, like having that support system around you is so important. And you're lucky, the timing, right? Like we were talking before we started recording, right? It was kind of that last wave right before the pandemic that you had the opportunity for that intensive in-person care, with the ability to have your family and friends come and visit you and kind of keep that mental strength and optimism going for you. You spoke to a little bit about your time in Spalding and just what sounds like phenomenal support that you had from your therapist. What were some of the early deficits that, you spoke to the region of the brain, you had your stroke. What were some of the bigger like deficits that you saw right in the immediate phase, and kind of those early goals that you were setting? What exactly did those look like?
Yeah. Mine, it was mostly physical on the left side. Um, I had to learn how to walk again. I couldn't open up my left hand, you know. They had to, if I was doing exercises with my left hand, they had to tape my left hand to the bar, or really give it assistance. Um Again, it was left side um neglect. A lot of, they would call it. Um and um More so, with the left side, it's interesting because the left leg, they always say, and they're right, it's easier to work on the leg than it is the arm, because get up and walk. And that's with my left leg, I feel very confident. No, I don't have the mobility to run properly with the, heel to toe, but getting up and walking around now without a cane um, is not an issue. Um, the left arm is the biggest issue, where I work on my hand and my forearm movements, my wrist turning, um, and some detailed movements of my arm. That's what I really been focusing on, as of late, especially. But to answer your question, it was more physical than mental. Let's put it that way. Yes, there was definitely stuff that affected me mentally, but the most obvious ones, I would say, was the left side physical.
Tim, that transition out of Spalding where you talked about, you were, I'm not going to say lucky, but I can relate to the same thing. We were lucky enough to get some of the best care in the world here on the East Coast next to Boston. So you had, a very set schedule of rehab on the floors of Spalding. Can you talk a little bit about transition into the next phase of your care? What happened after Spalding, and what were you feeling at that point now that you were less supervised and, let's say, back into real life? And we often ask our survivors, what adjective at that early stage best describes what you were feeling as a stroke survivor with a young family and a career you wanted to get back to?
So I'm just competitive. I'm competitive, and so it's one of those where, like, if the therapist says, "All right, walk," you have to walk to the end of the hall and back. All right, I'll do that. It might not be the best technique, but okay, I can do that. I'll figure out a way to do it. Um, but it's it's funny. You have these group sessions at Spalding, that I'm sure you know. Um, And the whole point is to prepare you for the new reality. That's what they say. We're preparing you for the new reality, the new normal. Well, it's funny because there was no way, there was zero way they were able to, and I mean this in the nicest way. There was no way they were going to be able to set me up for the new normal because COVID was getting ready to hit. And right after COVID, um, we had another child, and we found out we were having twins. So it is after getting out of the hospital, went through COVID. I had a 5 week. I had my 2 year old, my 5 week old when I went down. My wife was still on maternity leave, and then came home, went through COVID, and then had twins. So I then in 2022, at the end of 2022, I had 4 kids, with the oldest being 4, and having twins, and I have to focus on my therapy. Now, the fact is that no amount of therapy can prepare you for that reality. And you must have, I always said, I'm like, listen, if we're gonna do this, might as well, make it funny, if we're gonna do it, let's jump in the deep end. And like, hey,
You,
we're surviving.
you
And
certainly went all in. You certainly went all
yeah,
in,
that's
Tim.
what I mean. Just go all in, like whatever. It'll all work out. Um, and so, like, currently, my oldest is 6. I have a 6-year-old, 4-year-old, 2 and 2, and they keep me. They're the best therapy around. So when there are times where the maybe the insurance isn't coming through and I'm not able to have as many sessions as I would like, I've got my kids there, and playing with them is as therapy as it comes. Them running around is as therapy as it comes. It really is. Getting out there, playing with the ball, changing diapers. I try to convince my wife I can't change diapers, but that didn't last very long. Um, so it's just, it's been an absolute wild ride. It really
Yeah,
has.
yeah. And in so many people's lives that we talk to, in this journey right after stroke, it's like those, you're in therapy and there's goals that are very like metric driven of range of motion or these things that a therapist, PT, OT will be working with you, but it often comes down to like those real life goals, right? And it sounds to
Yeah.
you, right, as much as you don't want to, changing a diaper or being able to hold your twins, right, with
Yeah.
that bad arm. So what were some of the most challenging goals? Like, I think just the way you described your family life at that time, right? Like you were forced into doing some of these things, and that challenged you, and you took that and ran with it. But can you just maybe describe like 1 or 2 things that were like really tangible, like real tangible goals that you looked at outside of just the PT wall, right? Like at home with family.
Yeah. I think, I mean, a big one that I had was, um there's 2, I guess. One is getting back to coaching. I coach soccer for a living. This is how I make my career, is how I support my family, and it was so important to me. And I've like I said, I've always played soccer, been involved. Um, it was so important to me to get back to coaching, and being out there, coaching the kids. And when I did that, that was a huge huge milestone, I feel like. And it's being transparent, and it's being having a sense of humor about it. If I go out, and I'm coaching, when I'm coaching, I can do a demonstration, and it's funny because I do the demonstration, and I always say at the end, "Hey, you better do it better than me," you know? It's and it's but it's also given me a better, it's also given me the chance to, um, be a better coach because I have to use my words, a lot more clearly instead of just doing demonstrations. And I have to connect with the individual player a lot more than just be doing demonstrations. So it made me a better coach because it made me have to um, expand the way I do things. Um, the other way, the other thing that has was really beneficial um, was pushing a stroller, um, getting out to the neighborhood, getting out of my house, especially during COVID, and pushing the stroller was a huge help for me. Mentally and physically because it was just meant physically it's I can push it, it makes the arm feel like it's doing work, and then mentally I love it because I could see my kid in the stroller happy and and motivating me to keep to keep going.
Yeah.
And so it was a blast with doing that. Um, and that actually led me to be a part of Teddy's team. Teddy, while I was in while I was at Spalding, we talk about motivation all the time. One of my uncles is a big runner, and he had Teddy Bruschi um, video a message to me, and it wasn't through Cameo. It was a genuine one. Um, so he messaged me just to tell me to keep up the good work and whatnot. But anyways, when I got out of Spalding, I one of the first avenues that I explored was Teddy's team and his 5.4K that he does every May 4th. Um, that May 4th, 2020 was wild because it was obviously during COVID. Um, and and so and so what that did was that it it made it made me have a goal. I said I wanted to do this 5.4K, 2 months after stroke, 3 months after stroke. Um, and so my wife was like, I don't care if it takes you, 3 sessions. I don't care if morning, afternoon, evening, we can do it. We'll do it together. And we did. We got out the stroller and pushed the kids along the stroller and walked as a family around the neighborhood and did the 5.4K. And it was such a joyous time as a family of coming together. And so that has been a tradition that May 4th is when we go out and we choose a course and we do this together. So it's really brought us together which been very, very special.
Tim, I'm glad you brought that up, and I'm glad you talked about how important it was including your family in this whole recovery journey, and especially how you worked in the chaos of you have me beat, by the way. You said four kids under 4. Is that right?
At that, well,
At that
at that
point.
time, yeah, it was October. It was when, yeah,
Uh,
for a couple months there was 4 in the age of 4. That was my
s-
claim to fame.
so that case. So and I just want to look back because you said something earlier on. You felt that it was easier to recover the walking and the gait, and you have opportunities and challenges like you did with Teddy's team and the 5K. But you also mentioned that in somewhat jokingly that you told your wife you can't change diapers, and I look at that as that learned disuse, right? Or is that you mentioned that you had some experience working back the use of your left arm. Can you talk a little bit about how you use technology and you got it introduced to the Vivistim as part of
Yeah.
the paired VNS therapy? How did that start, and kind of give listeners a little background on that?
So Vivistim came across, it was like November 2022. And my wife and a couple others sent me over a news article from one of the news stations. I think it might have been Channel 5, but I don't want to give credit to someone who's not. But it was one of the news stations, and it was about this technology, Vivistim, and it was about this patient that got it. And um, it was geared. The whole special, the whole news article was it was geared for people in their mid 30s. It was geared for people who has had a stroke, not it didn't have to be, over 6 months ago. Let's put it that way. Um, and the person that they were focusing on had two kids, and they talked about how it was it helped the person connect with their children again, and be able to be a part of their society, if you want to call it. um so anyways, I saw this article, and and of course at the end it says, hey, if you're interested, contact MGH. Those type of things, you never think that those type of articles pertain to you. But yeah, I'm like, all right, let's give this a go. Everybody's like, you should, give it a go, try it. On a Friday, it was like 10, 11 a.m. On a Friday, I gave them a call, and I got through to someone. They said, and I said, hey, I think I might be a good candidate for this. Can you let me know? And they said, the receptionist said, yep, well, let me get back to you. We'll see what people think. They called me back like 2 hours later, like right after lunch. And they were like, yes, absolutely. Let's get you in for consultation. Let's get you to meet Dr. Lynn, who's at MGH, and let's go forward with this. So I about a month later, in about December or so, um I went and sat down with Dr. Lynn, who, I mean, I call him a magician. I call him the genie from Aladdin, because he was the confidence builder that I needed. Let's put it that way. Um, so what he did, he said, "Hey, what do you want? And what are you looking for when it comes to therapy, or what's on your wish list?" And I said to him, I said, number one, I need one thing that I really missed out on was the group therapy. Like I went when I got out of Spalding, the group therapy wasn't really there. It wasn't the norm to get Zoom going, and it kind of it wasn't the focus, and I really missed out on a lot of group therapy, and I specifically missed out on meeting other people that were similar age. you know I could probably get group therapy, but I'd have to go down to the senior citizen home. So it's I wanted to meet people my age. That was number one. Number 2 was I wanted more therapy. And number 3 was, am I right for Vivistim? He goes instantly. He's like, number 1, I'll connect you with David Sullivan, who is the gentleman who was on the news article, who he was the first person on the East Coast to have Vivistim. And so he instantly connected me with David Sullivan. David actually ended up, I gave him a call. We talked for about 45 minutes on the phone, just going back and forth about family life. And yeah, we really connected that way. And it was really nice to talk to someone who was in a very similar situation. But then anyways, the second thing was more therapy. Dr. Lynn put me in touch with a study where I would have a helmet. It was a study off, and I would do twice a week Zoom therapy for an hour, and 4 times a week I would have to do therapy on my own with an iPad. The iPad would tell me what to do, and I would do the exercises, and the helmet would say how hard the exact spot in my stroke of my brain was working during those exercises. And it was unbelievable. And this information was being sent to MGH. And that was remarkable technology. And they would, it was really cool stuff, because they would call me, MGH, and say, hey, you know what, work on this, work on that. We see what you're doing. And it was really, really cool stuff to see the technology of, I can do something at home, and that technology, that information can be zoomed over to MGH. They could dissect it and then let me know in normal people terms what the information actually means, you know? So again, that was my introduction to technology, the technology part. And then
That's
the
such a
third thing
big.
was,
Oh, sorry. Go ahead. No,
no,
keep
go
going.
on.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that third, like that aspect. It's just like whether we're talking to PTs, OTs, or survivors, it's just that intensive therapy, right? The continuous therapy, and therapy should never stop, right? But
Yeah.
just to clarify, so that study, that was like a separate study than what you were talking with him through Vivistim, right? Like what you're,
Yes.
yeah,
That
yeah.
led me
So
up to Vivistim. That led me up to Vivistim, and that was the third one. He said, absolutely, Vivistim is appropriate for you. And we will, he was very honest with me, and he was 100% correct. He was like, this is not going to get approved overnight. We'll get this approved, but it's going to take a little bit of time. And sure enough, it took about a year. A year later, November 2023, that I got a letter in the mail, like I was like going to college. I got a letter in the mail saying been approved, and your surgery is December 14th, 2023. And that was a very, very happy day.
yeah,
To know that I've been approved.
describe that surgery. So like you were sitting in the office, right? Like how much background going into, the saying, okay, yes, I'm gonna do this. Like, what were some of those decisions? Can you talk through like what that process looks like as well? For one, to get approved, but two, like just the surgery itself. And did that, like, were you nervous at all going into that? Because it is an invasive
It is.
surgery, right?
I'm not
Yeah.
wasn't too concerned with the actual surgery. I'm not afraid
Yeah.
of that kind of stuff. But I always it's funny, because with all this stuff, they want you to be, you have to meet a criteria. Um, you have to need it. You have to need the assistance. You have to be disabled. But at the same time, they have to see that it could work. And that was a nerve-wracking thing to know while I'm doing these tests to make sure that I proved. That was a nerve-wracking time to be like, am I not good enough where they're gonna say, sorry, this isn't gonna work for you? Or am I, too good that they're gonna say, no, you've got too much mobility and that this is not gonna work for you. And that was a very strenuous time of of knowing if I fit that criteria. Um, Thankfully, they said that I was the perfect candidate for it all, and that I fit right on in to what they were looking for.
Yeah, I could imagine, right? Because it's like you've seen you saw chat with David, like you saw the opportunity that's there, and I'm sure some of his story of just the impact and just similarities of like where you guys were in your life, right? With the kids and the goals that you were looking for. Happy that it did work out, but yeah, at least where they are right now with the technology, right? It is a smaller criteria, but we're hoping, over time that's only going to be able to grow. So, you've gone in, you got approved, you're going for surgery, you're coming out. Like what did that process look once you've gotten the surgery and you're coming out? Like, now are you working with the same occupational therapist? Did you have a new therapist, or how'd that,
I did. Yeah.
session look?
So going it leading up to it, I was working a lot on like stretching and yeah, a lot of different stretches and yoga type stuff. Um, and then when I got the Vivistim put in, it was about it was relatively easy. Go in, few hours. They put a cut on the neck, cut right above the heart, and I always say that it's like a pacemaker. It's just this metal thing that's right above my heart here, and anyways, when I got out, the first thing, and even to this day, the first thing is voice projection. Um, if I don't drink enough water, um, if I don't drink enough water, I lose my voice instantly. The kids laugh at me when I'm coaching. If I'm shouting and the voice starts to go, that's the biggest one. But and I've gotten the voice back, but like I said, if I don't drink enough water, it goes so quickly. Um, but I mean, it was sore for my collarbone area. Um, but it was fine. It was manageable. Let's put it that way. And you get through it. Get
And that
through it.
was,
And
I'm sorry, Tim. So just to
no, go
clarify,
on.
was that a day procedure and then you were back home? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a day procedure. Wife brought me in, we and they knocked it out of the park. They did and then yeah, they knocked it out of the park. And then yeah,
Then it's
home
training
later on
time,
that
right?
day.
Yeah, then it's
Huh?
training time. Then it's
It
training
is
time.
no,
It
the
gets
best
intense.
part,
Yeah.
it is training time, but the best is that they say, "Hey, you gotta rest for a few days," and that was
Okay.
awesome. 'Cause that was like a vacation. Hey, the wife and kids, they're like, I have to. Dad's gotta lay down. Doctor's orders.
That's right. So,
But no, to answer your initial question about therapy. So few weeks, about 3 or 4, about 3 weeks later, after everything kind of heals up and you get comfortable, I started therapy, and the therapy was 3 times a week, hour and a half sessions. Um, and I was fortunate. I was very, very lucky that I got two very, very good OTs, very good. And they have worked with me now. And so that 3 days a week, hour and a half sessions goes um goes six yeah goes 6 weeks. After that, um we meet twice a week now, during twice a week for 1 hour, and they give me homework to do at home also. But they're at the sessions, they're sitting there, and you talk about technology, it's absolutely wild. I still can't comprehend, um and it's tough to explain, but therapists, you have to be trained into you have to be trained to to work the Vivistim. And so I have these two wonderful therapists that I go in, and they sit there and they click. They have a little clicker. They click it, click it, click it. They click it like once every second for like an hour straight while I'm doing my sessions. And so they'll be clicking it hundreds of times over the hour. And it's just a constant reminder saying, hey, work your left, work your left, work your left. And now, since we're a few months in, we're working on more and more advanced stuff, not just opening up the hand, not just reaching out, but grabbing something, turning my wrist, really advanced skills to get going. I never thought that I was going to be able to. First, they used to have me try to pick up golf tees, and it was frustrating and amusing at the same time, because I mean, it wasn't even close. But now I'm able to pick up golf tees with my two fingers,
Wow.
and place them and stuff like that, where it's like it's absolutely crazy of the speed that it works. Because like we'll be working on something and they'll be like, don't worry, we'll get it by next week. And like we'll just work on something when it comes to, say, picking up a ball,
Yeah.
throwing it in a bucket.
So
Well,
that's motivating in and of itself
it's so motivating.
to see that
Absolutely.
change within a session and going from something that you thought was impossible to grabbing something that requires a lot of fine motor control. But I think, just going back for a second, like and it's important to mention that the foundation is it has to be paired with exercise and movement and functional tasks. And you, in a lot of ways, are a perfect candidate because of your background, and you know the importance as a coach. Practice. You don't master something with 2 tries, and you're
Correct.
the time involved in the intention with that practice, the outcomes that drives that change that we talk about. And again, we had a guest on previously that just talked a little bit deeper about how the vagus nerve, its important role and its function. And what I just heard you see, that's inspiring. But I also saw, like, how did that change, like, emotionally when you saw that? That must have been like a huge
It's
light bulb moment.
Yeah, it's awesome. There's nothing, there's nothing cooler than, like, for instance, like we work on picking up a tennis ball, throwing it in a bucket. There's nothing. It's so cool that when, okay, I can pick up the ball and I'm trying to throw it and it doesn't throw. My fingers don't open up, you know. But they're like, don't worry, it'll happen. Just, it'll happen. And then a week later, we go and do it, and then all of a sudden it opens up, and we both look at each other like, oh my goodness, like we got it, you know. And then all of a sudden it's just easy. Now I'm just nothing, you know. And so it's stuff like that that is so cool to see that, like, and I'm not the I'm not the book smartest person, let's put it that way. Um, but I love seeing results. And I love like I said, just like I know for a fact I couldn't do that, but I just saw with my own eyes that I could do it now. So that's all it takes. It really is.
That's awesome.
And when a therapist or a friend or a family member kind of says, "Hey Tim, look at what you just did." Like that's so cool. You know, what my kids when they say, "Hey dad, you know, you're using your left hand, you're using your," they call it the bad hand, "You're using your bad hand, you know, good job." You know, or they say, "Hey dad, you got to use your bad hand to reach for this." And I do it, and they um it's really it's really special. And so when it comes to motivation and um different ways to improve, it really comes from different angles. It's not just one way or the other, if that makes sense. It really
Yeah.
comes from different angles.
That's cool to hear, and I love just the how you shared your kids saying kind of pushing you as well, being like use that offhand, and it goes back. My mom had a stroke when she was 28, and I was 6 weeks old, and like I just grew up always kind of giving her shit as well, being like, you know what, no,
Exactly.
this is what you're gonna do it this way, and
Yep.
it's motivating. But you mentioned obviously like what you could do in the clinic with your OTs, but you could also use this device at home, right? So when you're
Yeah.
doing the dishes, when you're doing activities, and what is it? Just like how to describe how that works
So
at home.
exactly, kind of to your point about like family. Um, what I love about my family and friends is that they they don't say, "Oh, poor Tim," you know. Um, it's all right. Oh, we're going. Let's go. Come on, let's keep up. Let's go. And I love it. I do. I love it. And that's what I need. Um, you know, if I'm playing ball with the kids, like they expect me to do it. Um, so but going back to what you're kind of leading to with Vivistim, up to 8 times a day, I have a magnet that I swipe over my chest and where the metal piece is. Swipe over my chest, and is what it does is once for the next half hour or so, for the next every 5 or 10 seconds, they say it sends a message to the brain to say use the left. And so it's really cool because for me, when I swipe it, instantly my arm goes straight and my hand opens up. It's almost like if someone was tugging at your tricep, and it goes straight. It's really really cool. Um, and so and then it just kind of loosens it up to give me a little bit more confidence to be able to use my left. But it's really cool when it talks about family because in the morning I'll wake up and I'll swipe myself and I'll say to the kids, "Hey, who needs a swipe?" And my little 2-year old, you know, say, "Dad, I need my swipe. I need my swipe." And
I
I'll
love
give them my magnet, and they swipe on their chest. It's so cool, right over their heart, and then they show me the muscles, and they're ready to go for the day.
Oh
So
man.
it's it's killed two birds. It kills lots of birds with one stone. Let's put it that way. It helps me, but it almost helps me more that I can I can get them going for school.
And you know
So
what?
it's really cool.
You're bringing them in, and you know what? Like there can be a fear in stroke, and what you're doing there is just letting your kids know it's okay. Like this is going
Yeah.
to be okay. You're
Mhm.
building that. Oh, those. That's just fantastic hearing that.
That's what I mean. Yeah, I've
Yeah.
never been. You go back to like we were talking about like adjectives, different ways to like
Yeah.
explain this situation, and I never want to be, and I mean this in the nicest way. I never want it to be a serious situation. You know what I mean? Like I always want there to be some kind of humor behind it, and um, just this is what's happened to me, and I can help others. This has opened up so many doors for me. Um, like this podcast, I'm really really happy to be doing. I um, I had I'm working with Harvard to do some studies to help their science department and engineering department with some studies. I'm last week I spoke at MGH OT department meeting just about my situation, how Vivistim has affected me. Um, and so point being is like it's opened up so many doors, and there's so much positive things ahead that this has given me. There's so many positive opportunities that this has given me. And yes, of course, it's not a good thing to have a stroke, but I mean, hey, let's hey, I'm okay with it. Let's put it that way.
Well, Tim, I think, the stroke community is lucky to have someone like you in it, right? Just the way that you've gone through this process and you've kind of rolled with the punches, and now you're really here. One, you know, thankfully, being able to go through Vivistim and see the great outcomes that you're having with this. Obviously, it'll continue, with being able to use it at home for a number of years going on. But going back, I think one of the big things you mentioned earlier was like, your big goal was connecting with others, right? Like, especially your age. And you didn't have that. And now you're starting to kind of have that opportunity, right? To go speak, share your experience. So I guess, as we wrap up here, for survivors out there, caregivers, who might be listening, thinking about this treatment or thinking about just reaching out to someone in general to have a conversation about their experience post-stroke. What would be your recommendation or just closing thoughts here?
Absolutely. Like I said, I welcome talking to others. And I see it as a great opportunity to talk to others. So if there are other people that are in a younger demographic that are needing a person to talk to, I am very very much open to that. You can reach me at my at on Facebook or on Instagram, Tim Blinten, TimBlinten, and I'll be happy to talk to anyone who feels that that it's that that I'd be happy to talk to anyone who feels like it would be a positive to talk to me.
Jim, thanks for doing that and making that offer to give back. And like you said earlier on in the conversation, like you were impacted by this gentleman who you didn't know prior. I think it was David Sullivan, who you just, it just grounds you. It makes you feel like, hey, things are going to be all right. Takes the questions out. You don't always
Yeah.
get all the answers right away, but it just makes you, build that community. And
You know,
we
it's
are grateful.
it's funny too with David is, and you talk about how it's a small world and how team and how, yeah, it's a small world and everybody's connected. Talking to him, I ended up coaching his daughter in soccer. It was so cool because I didn't know I was going to coach her, and I'm coaching, and I said, oh, wait, you know what, that guy looks similar to me. Let's put it that way. And I said, oh, I wonder if that's Dave. I go over and I said, Dave. He goes, oh, Tim. And so now we're but again we're good friends, and we go back and forth. He helped me on my presentation last week with MGH.
That
But
that's
you make friends.
That's the
It's really
power of
cool how
team
the
in
community
sports right there.
works.
You couldn't have said it better.
Exactly. It's really cool to see of how things kind of intertwine.
100%. Well, that's a nice like full circle moment, I'm sure, right? And seems like his daughter's lucky to have you as the coach there, Tim. So, well,
Yeah.
look, I think it's been a great discussion here. Thank you for coming on, sharing your story. Hopefully it's empowered others, who are out there, you know, in a similar circumstance, you know, I do like the fact I'm getting married here soon. I might have to use the whole I can't do this
Um,
just because the diapers, you know, that's smart. I think people might be taking that from your book.
That's
Hold
a
on as long as you can. When I went to Vivistim and they said, "What are your goals?" I said, "Not to change diapers."
well, you know, Tim, you have
Smart,
you
man.
you have a great attitude, and that's going to take you so
Yeah.
far. And just you know, we wish you all the best, and thank you for connecting with us here today. And I know your story is going to impact a lot of folks as well. So thanks for sharing.
I appreciate it, guys. If you ever need anything else, reach out to me. I'm all about it.
Thank
Will
you.
do. All right, Tim.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Absolutely.